Now, the Agency Suppressor Update has made the M16 extremely viable inside Warzone. A lot of people are using the AUG at the moment because it is the meta, but the M16 can definitely hang with the AUG as well because it is a really powerful gun, especially after this update. So in this video, we're going to break down the stats for the M16 and every single attachment to let you know what the best class setup is. If you enjoy weapon breakdowns, weapon comparisons, and overall tips and tricks for Warzone, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as we're trying to reach our goal of 10,000 subscribers because it does take a while to put together videos like this. And also click the link in the description and follow us over on Twitch. We do live stream regularly over there as well, and over there you can ask us questions about these class setup builds. On screen now, you'll see the M16, and the first set of attachments we're going to go through is the muzzle attachments here. So we'll bring up the muzzles, and the usual attachment that we usually pick here would be the Agency Suppressor, especially after that buff, because you do get sound suppression, which is of course very important for Warzone, recoil control, bullet velocity, and effective damage range increases. But you do get a con to your aim down sight speed and your aiming stability. Now, the main thing we tested here was your bullet velocity for the Agency Suppressor. So on the screen now, what you'll see is the bullet velocity for the base weapon, which is 581 meters per second. And then the bullet velocity for the Agency Silencer, once you stack that on the base gun, is going to boost that up to 775 meters per second, which is a huge bonus. That's about a 33% increase. Now, in terms of aim down sight time, it's about a 10% increase to your aim down sight time with this attachment, so you will be getting a con to your aim down sight time, and aiming stability we never really tested. Personally, for me, this is more than enough information for me to choose the Agency Suppressor over all the other attachments in this category. Knowing that the M16 is a long-range weapon, you want the maximum bullet velocity as you possibly can and the maximum effective damage range. So like I said, the Agency Suppressor is a no-brainer attachment, but for anyone wondering what the other attachments do, so we bring up the recoil chart for all of the muzzles, and this was done at a 15-meter distance, and what we did was fired 3 bursts vertically upwards just to see how the vertical as well as horizontal recoil control would fare with all of these attachments. So on the very left we have the base weapon, then we have muzzle brake, then the flash guard, then the silencer just to make sure it doesn't have any hidden stats, the infantry compensator, the SOCOM eliminator, and then lastly the Agency Suppressor, of course. Now, what we're mainly looking for here is the spread between the bursts. So if a burst is closer together, so maybe like 2 bullets are firing in the same spot, that means the gun is way more accurate. The actual height of the overall charts doesn't mean anything in this case, because like I said, we just fired it upwards just to see what the trend would be like. Now, the main attachment that looks like it's doing the absolute best here is the SOCOM eliminator. The bullets seem to be very tight together, which is very useful. In some or most cases, is actually firing in the exact same spot twice. And on top of that, there's not a lot of horizontal recoil. So if you're trying to negate recoil as much as possible, then the SOCOM eliminator is definitely your best option. But if you're trying to get that bullet velocity bonus and all that kind of stuff, then the Agency Suppressor is a good attachment. So this is really going to be down to personal preference, and I do think most people will still pick the Agency Suppressor. So that's just showing the actual recoil charts for what all of these attachments actually do, but let's take a look at the overall pros and cons as well, because some of these might determine on whether or not we should choose certain attachments. So the muzzle brake states that it doesn't give you any cons, but you do get vertical recoil control, which is true. The flash guard gives you vertical recoil control and aiming stability with no cons, which once again is kind of true as well. The silencer says it gives you sound suppression only, but gives you a con to effective damage range and a con to bullet velocity. Now, effective damage range can't really be adjusted with the M16 or the AUG because it doesn't really have a damage drop-off point, so that con doesn't really matter. But the main one that does matter here is the bullet velocity con, so anything that gives you a con to bullet velocity, I would recommend staying against. Infantry compensator does help with vertical recoil, but it does kind of give you a con to that horizontal recoil control, and you can see that on the recoil chart from earlier. But the overall best attachment for recoil is for sure the SOCOM eliminator. Even though it does state a con to horizontal recoil control, it seems like it does do the best in terms of horizontal recoil. It does hinder your shooting movement speed and your aim down sight movement speed, so if you want your overall movement to be as fast as possible, then this is not the best attachment. But the ranges that you should be using the M16 at, this shouldn't really matter too much. And then like I said, the Agency Suppressor would be the most people And then the Agency Silencer would be everyone's go-to attachment because you get that bullet velocity, sound suppression, and the recoil control as well. But I do think it's a throw-up between the SOCOM Eliminator if you want the best possible recoil control, or if you want to get the bullet velocity and the extended damage ranges, then the Agency Silencer is the best option. Now looking at the next set of attachments that we tested was the Underbarrel attachments, and again these are recoil controlling attachments. Well, most of them are anyway. So the front grip we tested, the field agent grip we tested, and the SFOD speed grip we tested, all for recoil control. The other attachments don't actually help with recoil. They all state like hip fire accuracy or overall movement speeds. And to be fair, you don't really need to increase your movement speed with this kind of gun because you should be running a secondary with it. So on screen now, what you'll see is the recoil chart for the 3 underbarrels I mentioned. So we've got the base on the very left, the front grip, the field agent grip, and the SFOD speed grip. And again, this was done at a 15-meter distance. And what you can see here is that the field agent grip just definitely performs the absolute best out of all of these attachments. The front grip does seem to help a bit with that horizontal recoil, but is not significant enough. The field agent helps a lot with horizontal recoil and also vertical recoil because a lot of the shots are firing in the same place. And then the SFOD speed grip definitely helps the most with horizontal recoil, but you do need that vertical recoil help as well in my opinion, and that's why the field agent is absolutely the best for the M16. So let's take a look at the rest of the pros and cons for the M16 recoil attachments. So we've got the front grip, which gives you horizontal recoil control, which it absolutely does, with no cons, so it could be a decent attachment if you don't want to give your gun any cons in any way. The field agent grip, like I said, was the absolute best in terms of horizontal and vertical recoil control, but it does give you a con to firing movement speed and ADS firing movement speed. But again, the ranges that you should be using the M16 at, this shouldn't really hurt you too much. And then the SFOD speed grip will give you sprinting movement speed as well as the best horizontal recoil control, but it does hurt your overall movement speed. So if you don't want too many cons, then the SFOD speed grip is a great option, especially if you can control the vertical recoil. But controlling vertical recoil on a burst fire weapon is pretty difficult in my opinion, so I would definitely 100% always go for the field agent grip here. So the next set of attachments we tested, which could possibly be the most important ones on the M16, is the barrel attachments. Now, we didn't test for rate of fire. I know a lot of these barrels do state they give you effective damage range bonuses and rate of fire bonuses, but it's going to be quite obvious after we take a look at the bullet velocity which barrels you should choose. So the only thing we tested was bullet velocity here. So on screen now, you will see all the bullet velocity values for every single barrel on screen just now. We can see the rapid fire barrel gives you a bullet velocity of 620 meters per second. The Cavalry Lancer gives you a bullet velocity of 735 meters per second, and then it's the exact same for the Strike Team barrel as well. Then the Titanium barrel actually reduces your bullet velocity to 569 meters per second. The base bullet velocity for the M16 is 581 milliseconds, and then the match grade barrel gives you a bullet velocity of 620 meters per second, similar to the rapid fire. And then lastly, the Task Force barrel gives you a bullet velocity of 634 meters per second. Now, in my opinion, for barrels, the main thing you need to be looking for here is bullet velocity for sure. So the two barrels that you obviously should be looking at is the Cavalry Lancer or the Strike Team barrel. But now at this point, you need to take a look at the pros and cons for both of these two barrels. So for the Cavalry Lancer, you do get an extended effective damage range, but again, this is not important because the M16 doesn't actually have any damage drop-off points, so it's not really going to change, so that's not really a pro. The bullet velocity is of course a pro as we've seen, but you do get a strafe speed pro, which is definitely very good. But then your cons are to vertical as well as horizontal recoil control. Now, we didn't actually test this, but it doesn't really matter. If it hurts it even just a little bit, is not that useful because on the Strike Team barrel, you do not get that con. You do get a fire rate bonus, which is going to reduce your time to kill. And then you're also going to get an aiming stability con. Now, like I said, the con to effective damage range doesn't really do much, but the main con here is for aiming stability. And again, that's not too important, especially compared to like the recoil con that you get on the Cavalry Lancer. So the Strike Team barrel is definitely 100% the best barrel you should be using for the M16. It's going to reduce your time to kill and give you the best bullet velocity. And down at the very, very bottom of the screen here, what you'll be able to see is the bullet velocity when you stack the Strike Team barrel with the Agency Suppressor. So you get a bullet velocity about 978 meters per second. So the next attachments we tested was the ammunition attachments, and we tested these for reload times as well as aim down sight times, because the main con that they all give you is aim down sight time cons. So on screen now, you'll see the reload times as well as the aim down sight times each of these ammunition attachments give you. So for the 45 round mags, the reload time is 2.4 seconds, and then the aim down sight time is 283 milliseconds, which is the base aim down sight time for the M16. And the base reload time for the M16 is actually 2.4 seconds as well. So nothing has changed with the 45 round mags. So this does give you a bigger magazine with no cons whatsoever. Then looking at the jungle style mags, you get a reload time of 1.6 seconds and no con to aim down sight time, which is definitely a good bonus. Looking at the 45 round speed mags, you do get a reload time bonus here at 1.8 seconds, but you do also get a con to your aim down sight time here as well at 317 milliseconds. Then for the Stanag 60 round mags, there's no change to reload time, but there is a con to your aim down sight time. This is the biggest con you can get at 333 milliseconds. Then for the SAS mag clamp, the reload time is the absolute quickest here at 1.5 seconds, but you do get aim down sight time con at 317 milliseconds. And then in my opinion, the absolute best attachment is the Salvo 60 round fast mags, and even though it's the last attachment, it does give you a decent bonus to reload time, so your reload time gets reduced from 2.4 seconds down to 1.9 seconds, but it doesn't give you any con to aim down sight time. Then you obviously get that 60 round mags as well, so this is definitely the best attachment for the M16 is the Salvo 60 round fast mags. So at this point, we've now tested quite a lot of the attachments, and there's still a few to go, but what we've got so far here, if we're trying to build the best class setup, for your muzzle, like I said, you're either choosing the SOCOM Eliminator or the Agency Silencer. It just kind of depends on what you're going to go for. I think most players will go for the Agency Silencer. Then for the Underbarrel, the Field Agent Grip was the absolute best in terms of controlling your recoil. Then for the barrel, the Strike Team barrel was the best at giving you bullet velocity as well as a fire rate increase as well. And then for ammunition, the Salvo 60 round fast mags was the best attachment here. So far, this is what we have for our best class setup, and the last attachment is definitely important, and obviously it kind of seems like a no-brainer to go for an optic, but I do want to quickly talk about rear grips here. Now, in terms of rear grips, we never actually tested these because we tested them for the AUG, and they don't actually help with aim down sight time. But the reason I did want to talk about them is because Exclusive Ace just earlier on today made a video saying that the rear grip attachments, especially the speed tape, help with vertical recoil control. So you will get some vertical recoil control with the speed tape. Now, like I said, we haven't actually tested this yet. The video just released as we were making this video. So you can use the speed tape if you want to help get a bit more recoil control. But in my opinion, most people are going to opt to go for an optic for this gun because it is a long range weapon. So instead of testing rear grips like we usually do and then finding that it doesn't really do anything, we actually tested some of these optics here, and I feel like this would actually give you more value because a lot of people choose different optics depending on what they prefer. So the three optics we tested here was the Vision Tech 2x for that 2x zoom. We tested the Axial Arms 3x optic, and we also tested the SUSAT multi-zoom optic as well, because a lot of people are starting to use this because it gives you less visual recoil. Now, don't get this confused with actual recoil. The SUSAT multi-zoom does not reduce actual recoil, it just reduces your visual recoil. But what we actually tested all these attachments for was for aim down sight times, because they don't really change your actual recoil all that much. What you'll see on screen now is the aim down sight times for these three attachments, and you can see that all of them do give you a con to aim down sight time. So the Vision Tech 2x gives you the least con, of course, because it is the lower zoom optic at 300 milliseconds. Now, this is not a huge con. Then the Axial Arms gives you a con of 333 milliseconds, so it's about, and then the SUSAT multi-zoom, even though it gives you less visual recoil, does give you the biggest con to aim down sight time at 417 milliseconds. So you need to make that trade-off in your mind and decide what you want to do. Would you rather have less visual recoil and a longer aim down sight time, or would you rather have a lesser aim down sight time and more visual recoil? In my opinion, the Axial Arms optic for the M16 is definitely the best option. It gives you the best picture in terms of seeing enemies at a distance, and it doesn't give you a huge con to aim down sight time. So I think the Axial Arms is definitely the best. And there you have the best class setup for the M16. So that's the Agency Silencer, the Strike Team Barrel, the Field Agent foregrip, the 60 round salvo mags, and the Axial Arms 3x optic. Now, like I said, you could switch out that Agency Silencer for the SOCOM Eliminator if you don't care about being suppressed, and you also could choose the Speed Tape as well if you want to help a bit more with that recoil. But like I said, I do think this is the meta build for a reason. So as I said, there is a few adjustments you can make to this overall class setup if you want to. But if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave us a like, as it takes us a long time to put together videos like this. If you're new to the channel, subscribe as we try to reach our goal of 10,000 subscribers. And also click the link in the description below and follow us over on Twitch. And thank you very much for watching.